My browser or my VS Code should just be chugging.
Right on. What is going on? What's up with it? Twitch, we're back again. This time on a Tuesday. Um, and yeah, we're just getting a VS Code live share set up. So bear with us for a moment here.
So we like to start off every
Yeah, just
show.
struggling opening terminals, closing terminals. Does this work? Test. The good stuff, you know? But
I feel like the link share with me every time. It's like the first time, nah. Second time,
yeah.
probably gonna work.
You gotta warm it up. Yep. Yo, what is up, Miguel? Long time no talk. Miguel and I just played a game of Counter-Strike. We basically won the game. Technically it was a tie, but felt like a win.
I'll count it. I won't tell anyone.
Hey, what's up, Furjay? Welcome. Just waiting for Ken to drop into VS Code. I guess while all that's happening, for anybody who's new to the stream or hasn't seen one of these before, what we're going to be doing today is pair programming a SMS-based waitlist for our friend's barbershop. I'm Trevor. Above me is Ken, and yeah, so we've been going at this for a few weeks now. And in a few moments, I'll show you kind of what we've got, where we're at currently, and then where we're going with it on today's stream.
We got a file tree loading.
Oh, nice. I feel good about this one.
Oh, I feel great.
In the meantime, I can actually just start designating these shared servers. I'm not going to open shared terminals just because I kind of have a feeling like we're going to have to do the terminal musical chairs, but let's see.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can get away with sharing a couple ports. Bum. All right. Still loading over there?
Joining collaboration session.
Amazing. Oh, I see a little green check mark on my side. That's promising. You having a good Tuesday over there, Ken?
Oh, we're having a great Tuesday over
Nice.
here. I got my 9:15 p.m. coffee going.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm on my 6:15 p.m. here.
And a little bit of bubbly. And a little bit of water.
Hey, and you're in the session. Sweet.
And I'm in the session. Let's fucking
Okay, do you see this terminal window?
I do, but it's doing the classic.
Let's kill it then. And
kill it.
Now I'm going to start a new one. Let me know.
We're good.
Okay, give me a hello. Perfect. All right, I'm going to open 3 more terminals because we're going to need 3 terminals to run our app and then 1 terminal to write our git commits. So let's get this thing going. So terminal 1, I'm going to cd into. Why don't you do like the client in terminal 1? I'll get the API and phone numbers one set up in terminal 2 and 3. Let's see. So I'll go npm start there, and then in terminal 3, nothing seems to be happening. But let's just see, like Twilio phone numbers list. Terminal 3 seems to be frozen, so I'm going to kill it, and oh, weird. There we go, and I'm going to start a new one. There we go. Okay, and then say Twilio phone numbers list to get our list of phone numbers that we have associated with our account. So we only just gonna need this first one. We'll say Twilio phone numbers update with that phone number, and give it an SMS URL of localhost port 4000 slash SMS. That should do it. And then we have our client and our server running. Okay, we should have everything that we need. Let's, I'm going to open up the app in a browser, and we'll see what we've got so far. So, so right now, where we left off last stream is basically this. We have a wait list and we have a served list. Last stream, what we did was we started saving the time at which people get served. We also added the ability to serve or remove somebody rather than just advance the queue using next customer. And then we also added this checkbox that allows us to toggle this like accepting customer state on and off. And for those new to the stream, the kind of like the cool X factor of this app, I guess, if you will, is the fact that we're using WebSockets to synchronize the state between different clients. So when we let's say remove this person who's been coughing all day from the list, it automatically gets updated across all web browsers that are pointing to this thing. So that could be from an iPad or an iPhone or a computer. It enables all the browsers to essentially have like a terminal that's synchronized. So that's pretty sweet. But today, what we have to work on is, let me just consult my notes here. So Ken and I met with the barbershop owner, our friend Andrew, and we went over kind of where we're at and came away with a few next steps. So here's kind of the rundown, Ken. We've got to add the amount of time that each person's been waiting for. That's one thing. We want to associate customers with the barbers that are serving them. So what that essentially means is we have to implement some kind of login. So each client would have the opportunity to log in as a barber, and then every time they hit next customer or serve from their window, the person who's served will be associated with them in some way. We also want to implement this functionality of like text cancel to remove. So when somebody gets added to the wait list, we send them an automated text back saying you're on the list and here's your estimated wait time. We also want to be able to tell them like text cancel in all uppercase letters to remove yourself from the list. So we will make that happen as well. Yes, let's see, what else? And wait time, different text if no wait time. We also like maybe once we get through those three things, we can work on like implementing the final copy for the text responses, and and then lastly, if we have time, I spent last night working on some designs for this. I think I sent them to you, Ken. But
looks
so we've got like a login page, and then we've got like a little branded app page, and these designs borrow a lot of ideas from a designer who hit us up on Twitter, actually, Matt Cool. He put together some designs in Figma, and I took a lot of inspiration from those designs that he put together, and this is kind of what the result of that was. So hopefully we'll have time to like just go through and implement these, make the app look a little nicer than it currently is. And then one of the things we probably won't get to this stream, but the next time is one of the things we're gonna have to worry about is like mobile optimization. So right now, like these designs are only considering like desktop resolutions, but they want this app to be usable from the phone as well. Um, so yeah, that's going to be one thing that um, we'll also have to look forward to. But yeah, I guess unless there's anything else, like anything else come to mind that I forgot that we should be aware of.
No, I think that covered
All right.
everything.
So
It sounds like we got our work cut out
yeah, we
for
really
us.
do. Does any one of those seem like what do you feel like working on first? I guess like we could really go in any of those three directions. Like add the time like the time waiting, um, associating customers with barbers, and cancel to remove.
I feel like the time waiting is the basic one to kick things off.
All right, cool. Let's do it.
Um, unless, yeah,
Yeah, I like it.
might as well.
Yeah, man. Okay, cool. So let's see. We can get started with that by I'm just gonna like pull up our database on stream, and if you have that window open, you might be useful to follow along there. But like in our database right now, our customers table, we're saving this like served at timestamp, and maybe we need to oh snap, David Snyder 404, thank you for the host, man. Appreciate it. Welcome to the pair stream on a Tuesday. Yeah, so we're saving this served at timestamp, but I think we'll also need to then save like another timestamp, like waiting since or something like that, that we can then use to render some kind of time in the UI.
Yeah, I think for that one, just like minutes is all we would really like. It's less of like a record and more just like a quick visual cue.
Yeah,
Hey, this person's been waiting 30 minutes. This person's.
exactly. So like that we can render that just like in the designs. I have them have that number just rendered underneath the person's name, so we can do
Yeah,
something similar for now. But yeah, in order to pull that off, I think we'll just need to record like we can just have another row or another column in the database like waiting since, and that'll be like the timestamp when they got added to the thing, and then basically every X number of seconds we can refresh the UI to say like what's the difference between the time now and the time that they got added, and then we'll render that value. Something
yeah,
like
for
that.
sure. Sounds like a good plan.
Cool. So I'm just gonna go and create that waiting since timestamp, and and here's actually a really nice little shortcut. What I'm gonna do is set a default value for waiting since. So when we create customers, we don't need to specify like a value for waiting since. It'll automatically default to the current time, and then whenever that customer is updated in the future, because there's already a value in there, it won't touch that. Like it'll the default value in SQL only has an effect if you're creating a new row and didn't specify a value for a particular column. So I've added that waiting since with the default value of now, and now let's see. So all of our existing customers got updated with this this timestamp, but now I guess we can go ahead and handle that or just like we can test to see if it exists in the front end. That'd probably be a good a good next step. So let's see. All right, so I'm here in our index.js file, our React component, and in our waiting. Where's our waiting list? Here it is. Where are you, Ken? Are you in this? Are you in this file? Oh, there's your cursor. I see you.
There you are.
Cool. So yeah, like we can basically just to get this started. Let's just try this. We'll render. Customer name, and then customer waiting since. Let's see what happens.
Oh, also you haven't shared the local host.
Oh, really? Is it not working on your end?
And honestly, how dare you?
What happened?
I said, and honestly, how dare you?
Not share the local host?
Yeah. Did you?
I did. Let me try unsharing it and sharing it again. 8,000. Okay, there's 8,000. And then here comes 4,000. Because what happened?
Usually within VS Code, it'll pop up.
Oh.
And it's not doing that today.
Wow. The nerve.
The hell?
So rude. Why don't you? Can you open up if you open up localhost 8,000 in your browser? Does it work for you?
No, it's just. Oh, let me see. Oh, yeah, it's got the time.
Awesome. Oh, it's not.
Lovely.
It's not got the time for me. Let's see. Okay, cool. So there's our timestamp, but that's super ugly.
No, it's good. Let's move on.
Done. All right. Well, let's see. We want to render this as like the number of minutes from this waiting since date to the current our current time. So to do this, why don't we let's see. Here's what we'll do. Currently, we're just mapping through waiting customers, and then for each customer, we're just implicitly returning a list item. But we want to do some more stuff to this waiting since state before we render it. So let's just for now, instead of implicitly returning, let's explicitly return. And then we'll basically do something here like minutes. We'll make a variable of minutes. For now, we'll just make it equal to waiting since. So nothing should change here, except maybe the word minutes will be added. All right, there we go. But now we got to think about how we can like, given this timestamped string, how we can parse out the minutes between now and then.
Yeah.
Cool. So, remember actually a few streams ago we were working with dates and like doing like addition and subtraction of dates in JavaScript.
Yeah, with like the new date, like the built-in.
Yeah. So like
function.
so you can do math operations on dates, and it will treat it as if you're doing math operations on the milliseconds. Like when you cast a date as a number, you get back the number of milliseconds. So knowing that, and also I should mention that we also have date.now. This is like a method that just returns the number of milliseconds in like the current timestamp right now. So knowing those two things, we could probably get like the difference in milliseconds between the timestamp and the current like date and time.
Yeah.
Do you want to drive here and take a stab at this? Basically,
Yeah, sure.
we can start by just wrapping the waiting synths in like a date constructor.
All right.
Yep. And then now, basically, we want to subtract. What would the order be? Like, we want date.now would give us a bigger number. So we'd want to say, like, date.now minus this new date that you just created.
Yeah. So
you could do it without calc. You could just say like in line like date capital D date dot now. Exactly, and now is a function, so you have to invoke it. Okay, so now let's see what that'll do if you save it.
Save.
Okay, now we have our minutes, which is a number, but clearly there is this is not accurate. What we've got here is like milliseconds, or maybe even smaller. Like, what does date.now give us? Let me see. Date.now, oops, in MDN. Do some Googling. Yeah, number of milliseconds. Okay, so this is really like the MS. If we want to get the number of seconds that the person's been waiting, we could divide this number by 1,000. So like if I go MS divided by 1,000, let's see what happens. Bundle rebuilds. And so we've got this like 490 point whatever seconds.
Yeah.
And then if there's 60 seconds in a minute, then divide it by 60, and then we get the number of minutes. We should anyway. Cool.
And then we probably want to math floor or just round.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. You want to do that?
Cool. Yeah. Should I do that on the MS variable, or I guess on the final?
Yeah, on the final one, because it's all those like division operations that will create the decimal places.
It within there though.
Yep, definitely. So in JSX, anything within the curly braces is just plain JavaScript. You can execute JavaScript, use JavaScript variables and stuff, as long as it's within curly braces.
So yeah, now we have it down to minutes.
Wonderful. So now the problem with this is that this will work when the page is first rendered, or any time that new data is added, but we need this to update on a regular interval. Like, I don't know how precise we want to be, but like if we wanted to be super precise, we could say like, let's like re-render this every second, you know, and then you know it'll feel like it's alive. Every minute that passes, it'll be like super accurate. So let's think about how we might want to do that. So let's see. First of all, we're already using this React use library, and they have a ton of really useful hooks. So whenever essentially we're gonna have to use React hooks to make this happen. Maybe what we can do is first. Well, actually, I'm looking at the docs here, and here's a use interval hook that basically says it re-renders a component on a set interval using set interval.
Ding ding.
So this seems like it might be the thing that we want here.
Did you have that? Did you already know about this thing, or was that just the fastest find?
That was well. This is kind of like I'm used to going to like this React use get repo, and scrolling down until I find something that like suits my needs, and this just happened to be like eyes on the right part of the screen at the right time. But yeah, like we want to use this use interval hook, but maybe we can first try like writing this component without additional like outside hooks, just to kind of like get a sense for how you would like implement this using like plain old React. So this is a really good example of like a moment where I'd want to split this functionality out of the larger app component and then handle it with like with its scope kind of shortened. So we can create a component that all it does is re-render the time that's passed since a date every second, let's say. So the first thing that we can do is actually just copy this. Actually, do you want to drive while we do this? I can like sort of tell you.
Yeah, sure.
So we can copy that and like just like outside of the app component, like above app, we'll just create a new component. And you can call this whatever name makes sense, like
refresh.
Sure, like yeah, refresh. Maybe like a time. I was gonna say a timer is like a pretty logical name.
Okay.
Something like that. And we can just paste in what we currently have and then try to make it work. So this component's gonna have to return this div. And if the props that it gets, I think we can work with it just being like the timestamp. So all of the like the calculation that we do to get the milliseconds here, we can make part of this component as well. So we want to pass the component like the lowest common denominator, and then do all of like the specific work within there.
Okay.
So you can grab the like that operation where we're saying like where we're casting waiting since as a date and all that stuff. And then just throw that in there. Okay, and now instead of customer.waitingSince, we'll have like, yeah, props.waitingSince, I guess. Unless there's a better name for this prop other than waitingSince, but I think that's probably just as good.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So now we've got red underlines under this waitingSince because it's saying it's missing in props validation. So to combat that, we actually have to add prop types, and we currently don't have prop types installed in our project. So I'm going to go into the terminal and.
Are you sure?
Yep, I'm looking at package.json and it doesn't. It looks like we don't have it.
We're importing it at the top.
Are we really? No,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
incredible. Well, since we're importing it, so it'll continue to work just as it is now. But I'm just gonna npm install prop types just so that I like to um, always like explicitly install all of my any library that I'm importing, just because it makes more sense that way. There's no like mystical mystical imports. All right. Well, since we already have that, yeah, you can define the waiting since prop type on this this component, and you can do that by just like beneath the component after it's been defined. You can define a just a prop types property on it. So it'd be like timer.proptypes equals an object.
um, sorry. Timer.prop types equals.
And it'd be an object where we're mapping the prop names to like a variable from the prop types package that we imported there. So like the first this prop type will be called waiting since. And it'll be like capital P prop types with a capital T, and prop types dot string, I guess. And you can indicate that this prop is, we're always expecting it to be there by attaching this dot is required property on the end with a capital R.
Oops.
Cool. So then that'll make that waiting since red underline go away. And now let's see. Once we're all saved up, there's our timer, and we can go ahead and use this timer where we used to be doing the stuff like inline.
Cool. Find where we were.
Yeah, David, the React use library is really, really nice. They got the app that I just built before this one, Playback. It uses it for a number of different in a number of different scenarios. Like I use it to play audio and facilitate like drag interactions and stuff like that. Dope. So the only thing that timer needs to work is that we need to just pass it that waiting since prop.
It should be this props.
In this case, it would just be customer.waiting since.
Okay, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so now this doesn't really do anything different than what we were doing before. But if we want to make this thing re-render itself every second, let's say, with the new minutes that have passed, we can do that. We can make that happen using a React useEffect hook. So first things first, we should import the useEffect hook from React. And what useEffect does is it allows us to like perform some kind of like side effect to state changing. And
it's getting the red underline.
Oh yeah, it's just saying that because it's imported, but we haven't used it yet.
Oh.
And I'm just looking at this here. We've got this useEffect once hook that we're using in the root index component, to set up our WebSocket
Yeah.
connection and then close it when the component unmounts. I think we could actually just use this. I think instead of plain React use effect, because use effect will expect us to like recalculate or rerun anytime any of its dependencies change. So real quickly, like if I go in here and I'm like use effect, here's what we want to happen. We can say like const interval equals set interval. So every 1,000 milliseconds, we want to, compute new minutes. And then in use effect, the return value is a function that gets fired when the component unmounts. So in our case, we'll call clear interval and pass in our interval variable that we just set. And this is a common pattern for setting and then clearing intervals. Is the set interval function returns this reference that you can then pass into clear interval to clear it. And we might say we would want to say give it an empty array as its the second argument to use effect, which basically says only run when the component mounts and unmounts. If we put other variables in here, like let's say props waiting since, this tells this use effect hook to run this function every time this value changes.
Which would be every second.
Well, in our case, waiting since never changes because it's always just the timestamp.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So that's probably fine. Yeah, let's let's see. Maybe we just go ahead with this. So yeah, this is the general like shape, I guess, of the use effect hook in action for our purpose, like setting an interval and clearing it when the component unmounts. And that's important because these like people in the waitlist, they will unmount at some point, whether they get served or they get removed. So we want to make sure that we clean up those intervals that are running once those components get unmounted. But yeah, this compute new minutes thing is the important part. Right now, we're just computing it once, like every time the just inline in the component's render sequence. But essentially what we want to do here is set this, basically set this value, the minutes, the rounded minutes value in state. And then basically every interval we'll try to compute that new state and then set it. When that state changes, it causes the component to re-render. So that will give us the type of behavior that we're looking for. So yeah, the first thing that I'll let you drive for this part, but you just want to create some new app state at the top of the component. We're going to use the use state hook, and the use state hook, it returns what's called a tuple. So the way you want to use it is say like const, and then you're gonna it'll return an array with two values. So using destructuring, we can separate those two values by just having open and closed square brackets there. So open bracket and square bracket to start destructuring the array. And you don't need the curly braces in this case. You can just say that, and then the first value will be our state value, and the second is our setter. So we'll call the state like minutes and set minutes, let's say. Cool. And then, yeah, you can say equals use state, and we're going to use state takes a default value as a single argument. So for now, I'm not really sure what we should put there. Maybe we'll just say 0, I guess. I don't know. Cool. And now, inside of our set interval function, we can basically do all of this work and then set that as minutes using the set minutes function.
You're saying to basically take this out?
Yeah, basically, like we want this value to be set as the minutes state.
Okay. When you're highlighting stuff,
Oh, yeah.
I always think that I no. So
I'm saying that like we can do it. We want to do it in the same order here. So like first get the milliseconds, and then in the next line after, like right here. Well, here if this makes it any simpler, like this component's still going to return a div, but instead of returning this value, we're going to return the minutes state value that we just set, and then you can call set minutes with this math.round value here to set that state value and force a re-render.
Okay, and is that as simple as like set minutes equals?
So set minutes is a function, so you can just pass that value to it. Here we go.
Sorry, shite with hooks.
No, it's all good. This is this is it. The wacky world of hooks. So here we go. Now every second this should update, and if we wanted to verify that, what we could do is just like for now, let's take off or like not round the value anymore, and let's see what happens. There we go. So yeah, now every second these values get updated. So that's pretty handy. And then if let's say we remove somebody, we don't get any nasty warnings in our console because we're cleaning it all up really nicely.
Oh yeah.
Pretty nice. And I just wanted to take a second here, and Ferjay asks in the chat, how do you handle the socket IO connection in React? I had a problem in my last project where I made a connection and use effect hook on some page component, and you needed to emit event from another component. So you ended up moving the connection to another JavaScript file and then importing it. But you ended up having a problem like multiple connections at once. I think I know what you mean, and David Snyder is getting to a possible solution here, which would be using context. So like to like share that reference to your socket. And here's what we do. In our root component, I'm using this use effect once hook, and I'm using a ref to store my socket instance. So we're actually using this use lazy ref hook to create a ref whose initial value is only computed once. That's important, and this is a point that somebody in a past stream actually brought up to us. So shout out to you, person from a past stream. When our component mounts, we call socket open, and we set up our our listener for our data event. And then when this component unmounts, we set socket, what we call socket close. So you could abstract this logic to like a higher level component, and then use context to then like pass this socket variable into all child components. So that would look something like this if we were using some like socket context provider. By the way, socket context would just be the return value for React create context. So you could say something like this: react.createContext equals socket context, and then wrap your whole app in a socket context provider where the value prop is your WebSockets instance. And then all of the child components could have access to that socket by using a use context hook. So we could say socket equals use context with the socket context that you just created passed as its only argument. So that would be really useful. Like if you want to be manipulating or like sending socket events from nested components, this would be a really good method of doing that. In our case, we're actually just passing this socket instance as a prop to our app component, and because our app is fairly simple, it's just kind of one level deep. We don't need to go through the process of setting up context and passing the socket through those means. I hope that helps answer the question there, Ferjay. But anyway, back here we have our timer component. It appears to be working, but if we wanted to, let's just say we wanted to use, so we know how to make this effect happen using a React use effect hook, but if we want to be like extra cool, we can use this use interval hook from the React use library and delete some of the code that we just wrote if you're up for that.
Yeah, let's do it. Make it clean.
Okay, cool. And so this is just handy because this hook is basically like a wrapper around this type of functionality. Let's see. I'm assuming that it will also like clear the interval when we unmount and do all that stuff. So we don't have to like write this code ourselves. We can just rely on it doing that for us. So we can, up at the top, I'm gonna import use interval from React use/lib/use interval. This library happens to have a really weird import strategy. But anyway, in order to accomplish the same thing using this hook, we can just say use interval, copy this stuff that happens in our set interval call up here, and then as a second argument, pass the delay, in our case 1000 milliseconds, and get rid of our use effect here. And that should accomplish the same thing. Let's see if that's the case. If I refresh the page, what happens? Yeah, it does appear to be working. Pretty cool.
Sweet.
Now, was there something else that I was thinking about doing with this, and I can't remember now. Oh yeah, we still need to round this value again. So we'll say math.round with our computed minutes. Nice.
Yeah.
And okay, well, then there's some other things that we can do just to make this component a little bit more performant. I mean, it's kind of splitting hairs for something this small, but I figured this is probably good to touch on anyway. And I'm looking at this bit of code right here, where every interval we're creating a new date object using the new date constructor, even though props.waitingSince never changes for one of these components. It's always going to be the same. Mm-hmm. So we could avoid doing that work by, instead of saying like new date every time the component re-renders in here, what if we just, like, I'm going to copy this value, and then down here where we're using the timer in the customer row, instead of passing this waitingSince prop as customer.waitingSince, we can pass it in as new date, and then customer.waitingSince. So we instantiate that new date once, and then every time the timer re-renders, we can just use the prop instead. And since we're doing that, one thing I think maybe we can, well, we're going to have to adjust this prop type, because now, since we're sending in a date object, it's not a string anymore. But we can use this prop type's instance of descriptor and then pass in our date constructor. So we're saying like that we're expecting this waitingSince prop to be an instance of a date. And then that should just work. No warnings in the console, hopefully. Fingers crossed. All right, we're in the clear. Yeah, and maybe the other thing that comes to mind is that maybe since we're like, I'm thinking that maybe we change the name of this prop to something more generic, like date. Because it's just like, it takes any date and then renders the time since that date. So if we change those props up here in the component, we can then change the prop name that we're passing our new date to down here where the component is used, and hit save, and then everything should just continue to work as normal. But we get a tiny little performance gain by not casting that date as a new date object every second that this interval runs. Yeah. Cool. Well, let's test this out then. Oh, before we test it out, actually, what about this 0? So one thing that it'd be nice if this initial value was also like a proper calculation here, rather than just it flashing from 0. Like if you refresh the page, it first says like 0 minutes, and then a second later, when the first interval hits, it sets to the real minutes number. So yeah, in order to do that, maybe what we could do is just abstract this, or most of this logic here, to a function that like takes a date and then returns the number of minutes between now and that date. Yeah, okay. Dude? So to do that, like I'd create a new function here that's like minutes, let's say minutes since now. It takes a date, and we can first say like get the milliseconds from here, and then what we want to return from this function is this value that we were passing to set minutes. So let's just say return math dot round the milliseconds divided by 1,000 to get the seconds, divided by 60 to get the minutes. And instead of using props date in our operation here, we can just use date, the argument that gets passed to this function. So now minutes since now, we can use it here to say, to set the date every second. And then we can also use it as the default value for our minutes state. So we'll say minutes since now with props date. So now let's see if we refresh the page, and yeah, and there's no more flash. It just goes straight to the correct value.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's see. I think that pretty much does it. Do you want to add? I'm going to add myself to the list and see, just make sure that this is working as expected. Hopefully, the default value that we set for waiting since in the database will have the correct effect here. But I'm just going to add myself to the list. Let's see what happens. There I am. So 0 minutes. That's interesting. So then after 30 seconds, it'll go up to a minute. And maybe here's a thought. Like when we're creating this message here, maybe there can be a couple different conditions. Like here's another condition that we didn't account for. So this says 1 minutes. So what do you think about if we're less than a minute? So if like from 0 minutes to 1 minute, we wanted to say like less than a minute instead of it actually saying like, you know, Ken's been waiting for 0 minutes. We'll say Ken's been waiting for less than a minute. And then once it gets to 1 minute, we'll say 1 minute, and then anything above that is like, you know, minutes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so let's see then. So those are basically 3 different conditions that we want to account for. And the other thing that this makes me think of is that we should, right now we're doing math round, and the effect of that is kind of like we mentioned before. If the number gets above 30 seconds, that's counted as a minute. Yeah. So maybe what we should be doing is rounding down, right? So like until it actually passes a minute, it's less than a minute.
Yeah. Do a math floor.
Yeah.
Yep, I will switch that.
Cool. All right. And now in our render statement, we can tweak this a little bit. Why don't we just say, like, what we could do is, I guess we've got some options. Like one thing we could do is just say like if minutes less than 1, return a div that says less than 1 minute or less than a minute. Nice.
Yeah.
And then otherwise we're saying minutes. I feel like we can just one line this. You know?
Yeah, I like your style.
So in here, in order to put it onto one line though, we're gonna have to use some JavaScript in this like JSX curly brace block. We'll say our condition minutes less than 1, and then a string less than a minute, and then the alternate scenario, we can use a template string to just say minutes like that. And then finally, if we want to account for that like singular minutes, we could do something like in here, another ternary that says like if minutes is exactly equal to 1, then we return an empty string. Otherwise, we throw an S on the end of that word minute.
Are you not able to do on the first condition less than or equal to?
Yeah, you could say that, like less than or equal to 1 minute. But then the problem with that is that for that entire for the entire second minute, really, like from minute 0 to minute 1, it should say less than a minute. But then when it goes to 1 minute, we want it to just say 1.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good call.
just 1 minute with no
I'm-
S though. And there's a library, another like I don't think that we necessarily need to use a library for something like this, but there's a library called pluralize that's really handy, where the syntax for using pluralize, the whole point of pluralize is to account for basically like this condition, like say the singular word if the value is 1, and say the plural word if the value is more than 1. And it would be like pluralize. I think it would be like, what would it be? Like minute, and then the value like minutes, and then you pass true to like render that value. But
I like your ternary.
Yeah? Okay, cool.
So I can.
Yeah, and like for something like this, it might be a little heavy-handed to bring in a whole library to deal with that. If we were pluralizing a lot of things in the page and we were seeing ourselves using this pattern a lot over and over again, that might be an indication that we can pull in a library or extract this out to a function and like handle it more consistently that way. But for this, I think we got what we want. I'm just going to add myself to the list again, and let's see what happens. So Jake gets added. He's been waiting less than a minute. This is pretty sweet. And then in a minute, it'll say 1 minute, and then following that, we can assume it works because this one's 6 minutes and 48 minutes. But yeah. You know that thing that happens when you've been looking at a word for too long, and it starts to look weird. Like I'm starting to question if minute is actually spelled like this. Minute? What?
Minute. It is. Do you want to save working on the copy until we do it all kind of at the same time, or should we update this right now to be like waiting? Like I forget what your designs exactly, but I feel like since we're working on it right now, we might as well.
Good call.
So
yeah, this right now it says added 44 minutes ago. I don't know if and really like the design is not. Here we go. 1 minute. That's perfect. The design is not like the final word by any means. Like I'm stoked to hear what you think about that. Like if you think that that added is the right verbiage there, or if this like as it is here, it just rendering the minutes is enough. What do you think?
No, I think your like mock-up is a lot more clear. Because like just saying 49 minutes isn't very clear as to like have they been waiting that long, or I don't know what other
cool.
Like I just think making it as clear as possible.
Yeah, I'm down. All right, so
shit, let's waiting an hour.
Let's see, like. Yeah, do you want to go and do that. Like we basically want to like have it say, this stuff in here I think is good as it is. We can probably start by lowercasing the less than, and then just adding this like added, capital A added, and with a space before, and then like a go at the end. And I'm thinking, hey Zen Games, thank you for the follow, man. Appreciate it. And yeah, David Snyder 404, use effect once is exactly that. It's equivalent to use effect with an empty dependency array. And the reason why I use that there is that I have an ESLint plugin that automatically adds dependencies to my use effect hooks, and I have autofix on save hooked up, so every time I save my file, it'll populate that dependency array. So it's really hard for me to have a use effect hook with an empty dependency array. But yeah, Ken, I think that you had it right there. Like you want to have added, added before, and then I guess the word ago at the end.
Would I add that to this as well?
I would just put it after everything, because we want the content of this to be like added either less than a minute or X minutes, and then outside of everything we say ago. Yeah. And then hit save. Let's see what happens. All right. So that looks good, except we need a space between added and the minutes. So to do that, you could just have this space in a space string within curly braces, or here's a little trick that I use. I'll actually just like pull up. The reason why you need this space thing is because I have my auto formatting stuff going on. But a way to trick that is to bring up the opening curly brace where I'm doing all this minutes conditional stuff, adding a space between the string and the curly brace, and then saving again, and then it'll add that.
Yes.
And so now we have this added 4 minutes ago, 7 minutes ago, and so on. Awesome.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well,
anything else for that task, or is that?
I think that's honestly pretty good as it is. I can't think of anything else. It seems to stay in sync, and can't ask for much more.
Truly couldn't. It's a work of art. Ship it.
All right, I'm gonna write a commit. Let's see. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say add a timer to the waiting customers, and I'm just gonna add some other stuff that I did, just like moving around ESLint configs and whatnot. All right. All right, next thing on the list, can cross that one off. Add amount of time, goodbye. So yeah, next we've got the text cancel and associating customers with barbers. What do you think? What sounds hot?
I don't know. Both of these are pretty out of my depth. So.
All right. Well, why don't we? Let's see. Let's do the cancel one first. I think that one might have more fun results.
Cool.
So all of that is actually going to just take place in our API. So you can if you open up app.
Yeah.
And we already have this post route called SMS setup, and that's where every time anybody sends an SMS to the number in Twilio, they send a request to this route, and so this is where we can handle anything. And we already have this the body of the text in this rec body, capital B body. So we can use this to determine like whether we want to respond to the current text by canceling a person or respond to it by adding them to the list. Yeah. So why don't you drive for this part?
Okay.
So essentially, we're going to want to send them a response back either way, whether they're canceling or they're adding themselves. Like the cancel message that we respond back with can be something along the lines of like, you've been removed from the list. But right here, we're like the first thing we do is we instantiate a new Twilio messaging response. And the second thing we do is we start reading from the database whether or not we're accepting customers. So I think before any of this happens, we can add another condition, like right in between here, checking to see if the word that's been texted is uppercase cancel.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Or would it be an if statement?
Yeah, we can do an if statement. I think that'd be good.
Cool.
So yeah.
It wouldn't be accept value though.
No, it'd be we're checking the value of this this property right here, rec.body.body. That's like the word that gets texted. So we can check if rec.body.body equals all uppercases cancel. And then if so, maybe just to start, what we can do is you can just so in a function like this, an easy way to like prevent the script from progressing further if you're within an if statement or anywhere, yeah, just return. So why don't we do that? Cool. And you can actually like nest that within curly braces because we're going to want to do like things on multiple lines. Cool. And that should do it for us. Maybe the other thing that we can do is actually just send them, like send a text back. So okay, and now that I'm reading this whole route handler, I've noticed that, remember that not yesterday, but the last session, we end this request handler by doing this like write head 200 with the content type XML, and then call res end with the Twilio messaging thing toString. This is the common piece for every different condition. Like we set a message that we want to reply with, and then end the request by sending that message out. So maybe what we do instead of returning here is we just need to wrap the rest of what we currently have in here, except for the last two lines of this handler, within an else block. So the logic is kind of like if rec body equals cancel, then like remove customer from list and broadcast new data event, and then everything else here we can contain within an else statement.
Okay. So literally, like
exactly, and then that end curly brace can just be positioned like right before we call write head. Exactly. And then if you hit save, it'll get all auto fixed and whatnot. Sweet. Um,
But we need to write. Did you take out return?
oh yeah, I took out return because
Okay.
so essentially what we want to do here is like for now let's just get this working where when you text cancel, we'll send ourselves back a Twilio message. So to do
Okay.
that, like we can take some inspiration from, let's say, like our we've stopped accepting customers for today message,
Yeah.
where we just call twimmel.message.
Dot math.
Yeah, so we can do that in there, twimmel.message, and then some text.
Um, copy. Love it.
We can just say like you've been removed from the list. Perfect.
Boom.
All right, now I'm going to try this out. So I'm going to go all caps, cancel. You can test it out on your end too. See if it works.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so this cancel, uh, this cancel keyword I think is like a thing that's baked into Twilio.
Oh shit. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, that's good to know. So I just had to text start to resubscribe. All right. Um,
Cool. And it also added us
damn it.
on the list. Start.
Okay. That's all good to know. Maybe I'll pop open the Twilio docs, like Twilio reserved words, maybe.
It's too bad because like cancel really is the perfect, most
Yeah,
clear, obvious word to cancel
it
your appointment.
is. Cancel.
What are we gonna do?
Okay,
Remove?
so by default, Twilio handles standard English language reply messages such as stop, unstop, unsubscribe, or cancel. Okay. These keywords trigger automatic replies from Twilio. This guide is intended to list the supported opt-out keywords. Um, hmm. How do we?
I'm just gonna try something while you're looking at
Okay.
that.
Yeah. That I think that could do the trick. Okay, so only single word messages will trigger the block. So, for example, replying stop will stop the customer from receiving messages from that Twilio number, but replying stop please or please cancel will not. I don't think that we want to really go like make them type in a formality like please.
No. I just tried it with remove and it
Awesome.
worked. So that's always nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
Customize opt-in and opt-out flows. I'm gonna just read this Twilio blog post real quick. David
okay.
Snyder suggests maybe like exclamation mark cancel, and that would work. But the thing that I whenever I'm thinking about these features for this app, we have to remember that the people who are using it might not be the most tech savvy. We're talking about a barbershop, and some of the customer base is very broad. Could be young people, could be people who are 70 and barely know how to text their relatives. Hey, snap. Ardo Souza, thank you for the sub, man. Big 4 months. Damn. Thank you, sir. Welcome. Okay. Custom keywords for opt-out. Um, mm, I'm just looking at this. All right. Well, I think that this will work for us. Hey, um, remove.
Yeah, either that or we go to thesaurus.com and find the most ridiculous, unobvious word and really make them jump through hoops.
Hmm. Sounds tempting. I think this will work for us.
Yeah.
Cool. So we have our trigger word. We also want to down here. I'm on line 54. Excuse me, line 54. When we respond to them saying that you're on the list, we also want to let them know like you can text this word to um, to remove yourself from the list or
Hmm.
text. Oh man, the I want to say like text cancel to cancel, text remove to cancel. Uh,
So this is actually this is not quite what you're saying right now, but when you were just explaining to one of the viewers that we didn't want to do an exclamation point,
mhm.
do you think that like using all caps is like on the same tier as that? Like,
Mm,
does a 70-year-old person know how to turn on the caps lock on their
that's
phone?
true. Oh man,
I feel like that might be like a doable thing, but
yeah. We could also like what do we want to say? Like we could accept the word remove spelt anyway. Um,
mhm.
I guess the making it all caps is just like making the intention really really clear. Um,
Yeah, I know. I would love to have it be all caps, but when you said that, I was like, oh shit,
yeah, no, that's a good point.
that's another slight barrier for some people.
Yeah,
Maybe I just think about when my grandpa texts me, and it's completely
it's all over the
ridiculous.
place. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that the whole thing might be kind of challenging for like the really tech unsavvy people. We could
true.
we could definitely do that like case insensitive
I
matching.
don't know. I might be overthinking it.
Let's get this working with what we got, and then we can always like we can always kind of like add more cases down the road too.
Yeah.
Arthur's like, that's insensitive, man. You're right. That would be case insensitive. Cool. I think that I'm just going to open up our docs. I think we want to avoid the word appointment.
True.
Let me see. What was our docs called? Sorrento copy. Okay. What we were talking about using yesterday was reply remove at any time to remove yourself from the list. Let's do that. Reply remove at any time. Uh oh. Freaky.
What? Fuck.
Live share. All right.
You never know what's gonna happen.
True. Cool. Uh, here, this is just like a net, but I'm just gonna use double quotes instead of single. And
True.
then here's the other thing. Right now we've got this string uppercase remove there and uppercase remove up here. Um, and one thing that we can do just to like ensure that the messaging always reflects the state of the app is we could like make a variable here. Um, so like up out on this level out above here or like maybe I'd yeah, where anywhere there. Like you can make a constant called like we'll call it remove keyword, and I typically make these kind of variables in constant case, kind of like we do here. So yeah, we define it once, and then we can use it both in this if statement, and then we can also use it in our text message. Yep. Yeah, and then also where we're using it in the text message reply. Dope. And I would just like add back in the curly, or not the curly braces, but the double quotes on either side, and they would happen outside of the template string.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right.
Oh, just
That should do it. Okay, so now we have our remove keyword in there. Now we can actually like do something about it when we get that keyword. So do you want to keep driving, or do you want me to go for a bit?
I'm easy. Do you want to take over for a little bit?
Sure.
It's cool.
So yeah, now when we get this remove keyword, what we'll do is let's first, I guess we can first check to see if the customer who texted us this number or texted us this message is currently on the list and they're waiting. Because there's a chance that like somebody might have been added, and we want to exclude people who have already been served. So what we can do here is just say like, we'll say customers, or maybe we'll say like matches equals await. We're going to target the customers database, or the customers table in our database, and look for customers where served at is equal to null, so they're still waiting, and their phone number. I think our column for their phone number is called phone. Yeah, phone is equal to this value here. When we add a person to our list, we add their phone number using this rec.body.from property. So we can use that up here where we're filtering customers as well. So yeah, this will query our database customer table for customers that are waiting and have the same phone number that texted us the remove keyword. And then we can say like, if matches length is falsy, we could say like, you are not on the list, maybe. You are not, something like that. Else, we'll have to remove them from the list and then set the message to you've been removed from the list. So yeah, if we get past, maybe it would make more sense to reverse the order of this. So like, yeah, we'll say like if matches.length. So if we have people in the database that match these conditions, then we do the removal. Otherwise, we tell them they're not on the list. So then in this block, we can just say await db customers, and I guess we just take the same condition, right? We get customers that match this condition and then delete them. And then we also want to broadcast new data event to clients so that they all get updated with the new list. And what I'm seeing here actually is an opportunity to consolidate some code. So here we're using the same condition here as we are here. Mm-hmm. So what I could do here is just say like const condition equals this object, and then just use this variable in both places like that.
Beautiful.
And then, yeah, so they get removed. That's all good. And then we set the message, and then finally we're going to emit a data event. So what we can do here is going to emit a data event with the new customers, but we got to get that new customer data. Await db customers and send that back. And maybe what we'll do is actually just get that custom. So we'll do it in this order. And the reason that I'm thinking is like, if we have these operations in this order, where we first set the Twiml message, maybe not. Here's what I was thinking. Like, I wanted to make sure that the user doesn't get texted back until we're done everything on our end. And I think that that'll still work actually, like this. You know, we set the message, get the customers, send a message back to the to all of the socket clients, and then finally, once it gets to the bottom of this function, we send a text back to the user. So that should do the trick. I guess we can try it out here. So if I text remove, all caps, remove, let's see what happens. All right, there we go. Yeah, I just removed a whole bunch of my own things. I'm going to try again. Now if I text remove, now that I've been removed, I get a message saying, you are not on the list. Perfect. I think that's good.
Trying it out.
Ah, nice. Miguel, this one is actually added by Miguel, I'm guessing. He's the only one. Like, if it was either one of us, it would have got removed. And here's the thing: is that like,
oh yeah, that was from last night.
Okay.
Just says the 78 minutes ago because that's when we added the.
True, you're right.
Timestamps.
All right, cool. Well, this I think this means that our remove functionality is working. I'd be confident in saying that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what's that?
You made that seem pretty easy. I thought that was gonna take a lot more.
Oh man, it's all it's all varying degrees of easy, I guess. But yeah, like this, it all just kind of makes sense logically. Like, we want to check to make sure that there's people in the database that are waiting. If there are, we remove them. Set the message to indicate that they've been removed, and then broadcast the new list of customers. Otherwise, just say you're not on the list. Yeah, this is pretty good. All right. Well, let's make this commit, and then we can move on to our last, or our next, we'll say, our next task for the night. In this commit, we'll just say wire up remove keyword behavior. All right. Can cross that one off the list now.
Love that.
All right, next up, we're going to associate barbers with their customers. So this one is actually going to probably take a little bit more effort on our part because it's like a two-part task. Like first we have to implement some kind of login, and then we need to, yeah, like when it's gonna be tricky, but like when a serve event happens, like right here, we want to, um, somehow know which barber is sending out this serve event.
So we're not implementing like an actual like login username password system, are we? It's just like an input field where they put in their name at the start of each shift.
I mean, yeah, like we could do either one really. The real login username password checking thing would just make the whole thing way more secure, way more like official. Nobody can like spoof, or like if somebody from the outside world gets a handle on the URL that the dashboard lives at, they can't like just
True.
go in and fuck with it. So that that's why I'm kind of leaning towards that.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think?
No, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense, especially with the security issue. I didn't consider that, but yeah,
Cool. Well,
this
let's see.
this is exciting because I have no idea how to do any of this.
All right. Well, let's get into it. So maybe we can just start by rendering a login form in the front end, and so that'll all happen in our index.js here. This is starting to get rather large, and I'm thinking that we can maybe like split this out into multiple components, like multiple files, just get things feeling a bit more organized.
Yep.
Cool. I'm gonna what I'm gonna do actually is just create a I'm gonna create a app.js file in components/app.js, and this is going to be where most of our app code lives. Because right now we've kind of got this index.js that instantiates a socket connection when it mounts, but really we want that functionality to be like gated behind our login form. So what I'm gonna do is, if you've got me followed, you'll see kind of what the strat is here. I'm gonna take everything in the index.js and just throw it into app.js. And I'm going to rename some stuff. So index, well, actually, first of all, app will become, I'm going to call it app inner. And then index.js will become app. And it'll still be the default export. All that stays the same. And I need to change this prop types to app inner as well. So the idea is that we've got this app. We still need to have this separation between like the unloaded app state and the loaded app state. And I sometimes use this naming convention, like it's like I don't really have a better idea of what to call this inner like loaded app. Maybe we could call it loaded app, but anyway, I often use this like component and component inner naming convention.
Okay.
But that's just me.
Common to use app for like you have the app.js and you also now have app.js as a component.
Yeah, good point. Are you thinking it make more sense to name them differently? Like name this
Maybe
component
just
something else?
clarity.
Yeah, true. Um, hmm. We could call it like we could call this like logged in or something, or we could call it like dashboard, or any other names come to mind?
Kind of like dashboard,
Let's do that.
even though it's not much of a dashboard, but
Um, I guess
even a small
we can
dash.
call it
Dash.
waitlist, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
This is our original app we're talking about, right?
Oh no, I'm talking about the like the component.
Okay.
Hmm. Let's.
We have two files. I was talking about like we have two files.
Yeah. We could call this one like server.js. That might make more sense.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because this one really is clearly like the server, and the other one is like an app. Okay, so I'm gonna change that name to server, and I just updated our package.json in the API directory
Yeah.
to start server.js instead of app.js.
Perfect.
Cool. And just making sure that everything is still Gucci in our terminal. I'm just gonna have to restart our API start script. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I actually like it better with name server just for clarity, because even every time we jump into this project, it's like index and app, and I'm
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, which one is
true.
which?
Yeah, now our app is actually like part of it's more representative, right? Like this is an
Yeah.
app. Okay, cool. So now in our index.js, it's going to become a lot more simple. It's basically just going to, we can get rid of all of this stuff. All of this stuff. Now it's only going to be responsible for rendering like app, or which will import from import app from components slash app. It's going to be responsible for rendering like app or some like login form based on this is logged in boolean, which right now let's just say is logged in equals false. This is going to be something that we like is dynamic, obviously, but for now we can I guess we can follow the same pattern and just make a login form component. What do you think? Like a separate file? Okay.
Sure.
So we'll go login form.js. In there, we'll import React from React, and it'll just have a single export default.
When you type export default before the actual like functional component, is it the same as just writing the function and then having that at the end?
Exactly, yeah. Same thing.
Okay. Just kind of like a short
Yep.
form.
And here we'll just have a username and a password field. This password field will be type password.
You're missing the R in placeholder, just heads up.
Damn. Good catch.
Don't you dare.
Okay, cool. So now login form exists. We can make sure we import it in our index.js. login form. And let's just check it out here. So yeah, here's our unstyled login form. So now I guess we could just give it some styles, make it actually submit itself, and then like hook that submit event up to a request that gets sent to our API that tries to authenticate the user. Yeah. So, what I'm actually gonna do just to make this thing like something that we can look at without hurting our eyes is just add some styles to this. So I'm going to import the box component from Chakra that we were using last stream.
Yep.
And we can replace this form with a box, and we'll say box as form so that we get to use these style props that the box takes, but the underlying HTML element will still be a form. So in here we can say like box as form, and let's see. In our designs we have this form that's like takes up 2/3 of the page width, takes up 100% of the page height, and it's just this red box. So I'm going to try to do something similar here. Do you want to do this, Ken, or do you mind if I keep going?
No, you can rip through this part.
Okay. So we'll say background is red. I think that'll give us some problems actually. What happens if I say background red 500 to use the value from the theme? It's a bit of a lighter red, but whatever. That might work for us. And then we'll say width, or W, is going to be what I could say is like 66.66666%. That'll do. That'll give me 2/3. I think I also might be able to just write 2/3 in here. If I pass a fraction as this width parameter, it'll make the calculation and then treat it as a percent. So that's pretty handy. The other option
is that a or is that a CSS thing?
This is a Chakra thing.
Okay, I was gonna say that's wild.
Yeah, totally wild. I mean, the other option, and this is a CSS thing, is we could pass a calculation like 200% divided by 3, and that will also have the same effect. Or the other way of writing this is 100% divided by, or I guess multiplied by 2/3, or divided by 1.5. These are all the same. Three or four ways to say the same thing. But essentially, yeah, we want it to be 2/3. This is probably the most explicit way of saying this. We want this width to be 2/3 of the page. Cool. And then we also want the height to be 100%. So let's see what happens if we just use 100% like that. And nothing happens because 100% is relative to its parent. And its parent, it happens to be 100% width because it's a block level element, but it's not 100% of the viewport height by default. So to accomplish that, we can use a different unit here. We can say at 100% VH, and that's like another CSS unit for viewport height units, where 100 VHs is 100% of the viewport height. So that'll get that working for us. So I can use this 100 VH. Okay, and then in our designs we just have it centered right in the middle of the page, and we can accomplish that by using flex on this box element. So we can say display flex, and then we'll just go direction column align, or flex direction column align items center, and justify content center. So these four rules will give us this nice like center aligned, or a box that aligns all its children in the center. And Chakra actually gives us a little shorthand for doing this kind of work. So instead of a box, what we can do is use a flex element instead. Then we can omit this display flex, and we can shorten some of these prop names. So this flex direction becomes direction, and align items becomes align, and then justify content becomes justify. So yeah, that's kind of a nice little shorthand that Chakra gives us when we want to make flex elements. So the result is the same as before. And then,
So are you still X as form? Does that?
oh yeah, exactly. So here's the as form prop is still there,
Yeah.
and maybe it might make more sense to order them in this way. Yeah. Okay, so now we have our little input here. We're also going to, what I'm going to do is actually use the input component from Chakra to immediately give these inputs some nicer styles. Okay, that's a start. Maybe we'll go like size large, and maybe the first input has a margin bottom of, let me check the designs, has a margin bottom of 16 pixels, so we can say 4 units of spacing, each unit being 4 pixels. So to achieve 16 pixels, we can specify 4 there. And let's see, what else? The inputs in the designs are, the whole group is like 480 pixels wide, and it's centered within this flex container. So what we can do in here is just add a box. We'll hopefully auto import that from Chakra. Make this box width is 480 pixels. And now that gets nice and centered for us. And then finally we just need a button. So let's go down here and say button imported from Chakra, and this button will just say submit. Okay, close. The button in the designs is a large button, so we'll say size large, and give it a margin top of 6 units or 24 pixels, which is what we have in the designs. And then finally, it's aligned to the right side of the form. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about that, Ken, but I've kind of grown to like having my the form action on the right. It just feels kind of natural. So to achieve that look, we can just say on the box that it lives within, we can go like text align right, and that should do it. Cool. And this is probably good enough for us to just get going with now, and we can work on like getting the logo in there and like refining the design later. But for now, let's just get this thing submitting. Okay, so we have our form wrapper, and we have our 2 inputs and a button. A couple things that we can do just to make our lives easier is, first of all, make both of these inputs required using this is required prop. And this is like a prop specific to Chakra components. Typically what they do is like they or not just typically, but pretty much across the board, they'll prefix some of these regular HTML Boolean props. Like on an HTML input, you might say like input required. But with Chakra, for whatever reason, maybe just for consistency across the board, all of these Boolean props are prefixed with the word is. So is required, is disabled, and so on. So this will make it so that the form doesn't even get submitted until these fields are filled out. And then the other thing I'll do is on our submit button, we'll just give it a type prop of submit. And what that does is it'll designate this button as something that submits the form. So now when I hit submit, we'll get the
refresh.
A little notification here saying that I need to fill out my username field. Yeah. And then the last thing that I'll do on these inputs is give them each a name prop so that we can access them in our form submit handler. So we'll say name equals username for the first one and password for the second. Cool. And now this is I think ready to start submitting. One thing that we can also do is set auto. What is it? Auto complete? No. Maybe auto correct? No. I think it is auto complete equals off. Yeah, so now I don't get a suggestion list when I have either of these fields focused. So that's pretty useful. All right, so we got a form, we got some inputs and a button. Also worth noting, because we have a submit button within a form, anytime I type in either of the inputs and you hit enter, that also causes a submit event. And that wouldn't happen unless we have a button with type submit within the form. Yeah. Do you want to take this next part, Ken?
Sure.
So we're just going to want to submit or create a submit handler for the form. And for now, what we can do is just we'll create a function that console logs something, just to make sure that the thing is working as we hope.
Okay. Just have to take an event.
Yeah, we're gonna take an event there. And maybe for now we can console log the username value.
It would be event.name.username.
The event.target.username.
Target.
Actually, event.target.username.value to get the value. So event.target is referring to the form itself. Event.target.username with a lowercase n. This is referring to the input by its name prop. So you can, depending on what name you give it, you can access those HTML elements through that property, and then we want to get the value property from the username input. And then if we're using this arrow function syntax here, you're going to want to just declare this like this: const form submit.
Okay.
And then that'll do the trick. And then yeah. So now we can just hook this form submit function up to the form itself for its as its on submit prop.
Would it be on the form or the button?
It'll be on the form, yeah.
Form equals what was it? Form submit. And would I invoke it? Oh no, it'll be invoked on click or no
Yeah,
on submit.
you got it. All right, so now
Okay.
if we check this out, console open and try submitting, I can try that right here. And oh, okay. Did you try it on your end?
1 second. Connection. Webpack HMR was interrupted while the page was loading.
Whoa. Maybe just try refreshing and then.
404 page could not be found.
No, I think that's fine. But if you submit the form, currently it's forcing a page refresh with like the username and password in the query string.
Yeah, so we have to eat up or event.prevent default.
You got it. That's it. All right, so now if we type some stuff into the form and hit submit, we get our username logged, so that is pretty satisfying. Now I guess we can take this value and the password value, and we want to send a request to our API. Yeah, so to do that, we can just use fetch. Like let's see. Oh, so there's a common way of doing authentication with HTTP requests is, yo, what's going on, pancakes? Welcome. So a common like technique for doing authentication using like an HTTP request that I like to use is called basic auth. And the way it works is you basically encode the username and password in a header, like some header data that you attach to your HTTP request. You send that to your server. The server then decodes the header, checks it against a row in the database, and then if everything checks out, if the username and password are valid, then it'll send you back some unique tokens that represents your like logged in state. So we're gonna try to wire up something similar right here. And the way that basic auth headers work is you want to say like yeah, here I'll just kind of like show you what the header looks like.
Yeah, go for it.
So it's gonna const basic auth equals, starts with the string basic in uppercase, and then you have following this is a base 64 encoded string. So you want to, well, first of all, string to encode is equal to the username, then a colon, and then the password. And this username and password value we can get from the form. We can say from event.target we will destructure the username and password properties. These both represent the inputs. So in here we'll have to say username.value and password.value. And then, yeah, in here basic auth will say basic and then followed by the base64 encoded version of this string. So I'm just going to do a quick search here, like how to base64 encode in JavaScript. And there's two functions. There's this B2A function and an A to B function. So B2A creates a base64 encoded string from a string of binary data. Yeah, that's the function that we want. And then A to B does the opposite. It decodes a base64 encoded string. So we'll just say B2A string to encode, and this is our basic auth header. So now when we make our fetch request, we'll go fetch like we have our API URL as an environment variable. So we'll say process-env Gatsby API URL /auth. We haven't set this route up yet, but we are going to.
Okay.
And then we just supply some headers on this request. We'll say headers authorization is equal to basic auth. And this is the request that we need to send out. And now that we kind of have this like I don't know, process down, what we can do is just like throw the template string right in this auth header, and we could even do this as well. I don't know if that's too much in a small or like not separated enough, you know.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of nice.
Yeah, for me that makes it easier to understand right now, but
Yeah.
we can refactor after.
For sure. I'm gonna just call this something else, like basic auth. Yeah, there we go. So now we're sending off this fetch request, but we're not handling it in any way right now. So what we can do is we'll await its response. Because we're using await, we have to use async keyword up here. And then finally, once we get the response back, we can check if the response is okay. Then we'll like save the token that we get back from API. Otherwise, let's just console log the response status text property.
Is response.ok just a like property you're putting onto that, or is that
This
built
is built in? So it's part of the return value of like a completed fetch promise. Is you get this response, and the response object has this OK boolean on it, and it's true if the response the request went through without error, and false if there was an error involved.
Cool.
So for now, we're basically expecting that we're going to have an error because we haven't set up this auth route, and maybe we also forgot to do something else. But let's just see if I hit submit. I see. So we got two problems here. Well, we got one problem that we need to fix first, which is that our request has been blocked by CORS. And CORS is, if you're familiar with CORS, you might have encountered this before, where it's like a policy where browsers don't let or by default servers can't communicate from between server and browser with any old website. Um, we're going to have to basically indicate that our server can accept connections from anywhere, or specify like a specific whitelist of domains that we're willing to accept connections from.
Okay.
And so the kind of simple way to do that is using an express middleware called CORS. Um, what we'll do is first install that CORS package. So in the API directory, I'm going to run npm install CORS, CORS. And CORS, it's an acronym that's like cross origin request something. What is it? CORS. Cross origin resource sharing. Yeah, basically like preventing any old website from communicating with any old API through a browser. Now, CORS doesn't apply the same way to like server to server communication, which is an interesting little like twist. But yeah, browsers, they do respect CORS. So now that we've installed the CORS package in the API directory, I can just go here and say const CORS equals require CORS. And then after I create our new Express app, I can just say app.use and then pass in CORS, and I want to invoke that middleware. So now that we have this, let's try submitting this form again. And we should still get an error, but hopefully a different error this time. So there we go, not found. Perfect. Okay. So we can go and fix that error now. Fun. I'm also just going to move this app.use CORS to where we're already setting up some other middleware for our Express app to use, so we can kind of group those things together. Yeah, kind of like that. And then, yeah, right before we set up our SMS route, we can also set up a auth route. So just to test to make sure that our client is communicating with our API, let's just set up a route that takes a request and a response object, and we'll just say res.send hello.
Hello.
So now when I hit submit, let's see what happens. So now it's saying okay. That is the value for response.status text. So if we put this within our response OK block now, we'll see that this should only fire if the response came back without error, and we can see that happens. Now if we want that hello text to show up, what we got to do is invoke another promise on the response. It has a text method, so what we can do is say like text equals await response.text, and then let's try console logging that text. And now we get hello.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, Boaz? We are currently making an SMS-based waitlist. So our friend's barbershop is opening up next month, and they are implementing a bunch of new measures to make things like safe for their employees and their customers. One of which is implementing a waitlist system, so they don't have lots of people waiting and like crowding up the space inside the barbershop. So that's the overall project. The part that we're on right now is adding like authentication around the barber dashboard part of the app. Yeah, so now we have our hello response coming through. That's really cool. Let's expand on that now. So we're sending a basic auth header to this auth route, and we can actually like just confirm that we're getting this header by like in our response from the auth route. I can just send back rec.headers.authorization. So we'll send back the header that we're sending, just to make sure that we're getting it on the API side. And there it is. Pretty cool. So knowing that, what we can do next is actually there's a really handy NPM package called basic auth that makes parsing a basic auth header and decoding it and all that stuff really easy. It's got like 3 million weekly downloads. It's the shit, man. I'm gonna drop a link to it in chat there if anybody wants to use it in their stuff. But basically all you need to do is acquire the package and then call it with the request object that we get from Express. And what that will give us is a user property and a password property. And we can use those properties to like check against a row in our database. So I'm going to go install basic auth in our API directory, and then you can take over from here if you're down for that.
Yeah, I was just gonna. I don't know if this is like a weird formatting thing, but look at like on line 50. Look at customers.
Yeah.
Does it look crazy to you?
Are we looking at login form or server?
Server.
Oh,
sorry.
like customers within the curly braces like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is essentially the same as saying like customers, setting the customer's key to a customer's variable. So up here we define customers as like the return value of this like, we fetch the customers from our database, and then we want to pass this customer's array back as a customer's property on the data event. So we essentially want to say this, right?
Sorry, are you at line 50 on server?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, my shit is bugging out for me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, customers has a space between every letter.
Oh,
and I can't see your.
That's not right. Maybe just like close the file and reopen it.
Yeah, every time I. Yeah, okay.
Are you in there now?
Let me see. No, it's still being super weird.
Okay.
It's like io.emit data, and then there's like probably 10 spaces before customers, and then it's CU space S space T and.
All right. Well, luckily that's not the case on the real code, but wonder how we can get around this. Maybe like if you leave the sharing session and join again.
It's actually doing that for every instance of that on the.
That's weird.
For some reason, just. Yeah. every emit event.
Wonder why that's happening. Maybe try like leaving the sharing session and rejoining.
All right. It's asking if I want to save the changes to the following 4 files. Should I just say don't save?
Yeah, don't save.
Okay. Jesus. Going off the grid on this one.
Yeah, this is one that we've never seen before. How exciting!
We're all about running into new errors on this.
It's kind of our thing. It's like our
It's kind of what we're into,
per se. Just waiting for Ken to get back in here, y'all. And then we'll keep roaring through this. Yeah, hopefully we can get this auth stuff figured out fairly quickly. What I'm going to do in the meantime while you're connecting is just set up a barbers table in our database.
Sounds good.
So this will be called barbers. Yeah, they'll have an ID, and they'll have a username, and they'll have a password. I think that's it. All right, and then I'm just going to make a user in here called Deco. Should I call him Deco or Andrew? Andrew.
Salty.
Salty. I like it. Okay.
It's for some reason this live share link is not working anymore.
I'll send you a new one. Okay, one sec.
Cool. Oh wait, never mind.
It's working?
10th time is the charm, baby. I'll still need to. It'll take another
No worries.
minute.
I'm gonna work on encrypting a password for Salty. We'll just say bcrypt.
Do you think Salty's a good idea? Do you think Salty's a good idea?
For sure. We can always change it anyway. It's no problem. We'll change to whatever he likes. So yeah, let's see. Bcrypt. We'll go const salt equals bcrypt.js gen salt sync. And hash equals hash sync. And we'll pass in some dummy password like password and pass in the salt. And let's see what happens. There's our password. Cool. And the reason I want to, it's what's called hashing a password, is to avoid storing like plain text passwords in a database. That's like a super big no-no. You want to use a encryption program like what we'll be using is bcrypt to like encrypt and check encrypted passwords against like a plain text password that we get from our basic auth header.
Okay.
Still loading?
Yeah, it's just joining now.
Okay, so in the meantime, I'm going to also install a package. I'm going to install bcrypt.js. Oh, there you are. Hello. What's the situation with the terminals? Do you have access to those?
I'll let you know in 1 second. Yeah, it looks like I'm good on the terminals.
Nice. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to install bcrypt.js. And I've already installed basic auth, so that's everything we need to set up this authorization route. So yeah, Ken, if you want to take over in server.js and you can write for a bit, like the first thing that we'll want to do is require the basic auth package.
Okay. Is that just const?
Oh, I don't see any. I don't see anything changing on my end.
Not at the top? Under where you required cores, or am I doing it in the wrong spot?
I don't see that file changing.
Weird.
That is weird. Here, I wonder if it's freaking out because. Okay, wait. Try typing something in the file you're in. I'm following you now. Oh man, it thinks you're in index.js. This is so weird. Okay.
Wondering if it had to do with when we changed all the file structures.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking the same thing. Okay, here's the plan. I'm just gonna end the sharing session and start a new one.
Okay.
Okay. We will get this. Okay, sharing session is over. I'm actually just gonna restart my VS Code as well.
Yeah, I'll do the same.
Okay.
Love to find all these little nuances with this live show, don't we? Love to break it. But we still love it.
Yep. That's true. All right, I'm going to start a new session. Let's see, start collaboration session. All right, I've got a link. Here you go. Let me know when you're in.
Feeling good about this thing.
Yeah, me too. And I'm hoping that we can like get at least this auth stuff wrapped up. Like basically have like a working login form within the next 20 minutes, and then maybe we can pick up like with the whole barber association stuff next session, because I know that it's getting pretty late over there.
Yeah, I'm happy to pick up that, and other than that, it's just like styling, right?
Yeah, exactly. Once we have that, that's like the last bit of functionality that we have to do is associating barbers with customers.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we can get this done in the next little bit, that'd be sweet.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow we might be able to finish up.
I'm thinking so, yeah.
I'm just gonna run to the bathroom while this file tree is
All
loading.
right, cool. Come on, file tree load. Oh, there we go. Ken Taylor has joined the session. I'm gonna set up some servers. We're gonna get it all set up for when he is back. So we'll share port 4000, port 8000. We're gonna create a couple terminals. More than a couple. We're gonna create 4 terminals. One for our client, one for our API, one for Twilio, and then one to make our Git commands in. So I'll do all the setup here. So cd client npm start. Then terminal 2, we'll say cd API npm start. Third one, we'll say Twilio phone numbers list. And grab the phone number, run Twilio phone numbers update with the phone number as an argument, and then specify an SMS URL, which is just http://localhost 4000. Okay.
All right. We back up.
I think we're back. Let me know if you can load localhost 8000 on your side.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Now in the server.js file.
Yes.
I can see you. We're moving. It works. All right. Cool.
Oh.
So yeah, we can import. You can say like import basic auth. From basic -auth.
Oh, it's an import.
No, like you are. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, require.
Yep.
Is it like that?
It's basic -auth. All right, and now down here in our auth route handler, you can just say like credentials equals, or like const credentials, I guess. We're going to create a new variable, credentials, which is equal to basic auth, and you can just pass in the entire request, the REQ value into there.
Sorry, you cut out for a second.
Oh yeah, like
pass the request.
Yeah, you can pass the request to basic auth.
This whole request headers authorization.
No, just REQ. It's smart enough to like parse out the header from the request. All right, now let's try passing credentials back to the client. Instead of passing request headers authorization, you can just pass the credentials variable that you just created there.
To the client in the...
Just using this, like in right here, res.send, it determines what the response from this route will be. So we can send credentials back. Let's see what happens now. If we give it a username, some password, hit submit, and there we go. We have what we get back is an object with a name property and a pass property. So those are going to be useful for us. So after this, what we want to do is like find a user in the DB with the specified username, and then like if one exists, check like I guess like compare the passwords, and then if the passwords match, send back a token, and then in all other cases respond with an error. Does that make sense? Cool. Yo, Orc Tamer, what's up? You said you finished your first Next.js project and you really enjoyed using React. I'm glad to hear it, man. I remember a little while ago you were I forget exactly what you were using. Maybe it was Vue or Angular, but you hadn't jumped into the React world yet. So I'm happy to hear that you enjoyed it. If your personal site is live right now, it was Vue, got it. If your personal site is live, please link it in chat. Be happy to take a look. All right, so yeah, credentials is an object with a name and a pass property on it. So the first thing we can do is use that name property to find a user in the database with that name. So we're gonna use like our just like we've done in the past, like finding querying the customers table using the DB function. We can do the same thing here. What you can do if you want me to kind of like talk you through the steps. First, like we'll store the user in a variable, so we can say like const user equals DB, and you can open up parens there, and we're going to target the barbers database. And so barbers, and then after the closing parentheses, we can tack on another function there called where, and we'll just say like where the first argument is the column name, so this is username, and the second argument is like the value that we want to check for, so it'll be like credentials.name in our case. Cool. And then by default, this will give us an array of results, so we can force it to just return 1 by tacking on another function at the end just called first. All right, cool. And then to make sure that this is going to be returning a promise, so to wait for that promise to resolve, you can just tack on the await property there. And if we're using await, we have to make the function async. Awesome. Okay, so now we're getting a user, or we're getting undefined if the user doesn't exist. So I guess what you could do is next like create an if statement that checks for like the existence of a user. You can just basically say if user. So if it's undefined, this check will fail. So that's good to know. And then within this if statement, now we want to check if the passwords match. So because we encrypted the password using bcrypt, I did that while you were while we were trying to get you back into the sharing session. I think the first thing we can do is just go up to the require statements and require bcrypt. So it'll be like const bcrypt equals require.
How do you spell recrypt? Like
it just b and then crypt. Yeah. Equals require, and the package name is actually called bcrypt.js, all one word. Cool. And now if we open up the bcrypt.js docs, they have, we use the gen salt sync and hash sync operations to generate to like encrypt the password. And then if we want to check a password, it gives you this compare sync function where you pass in the plain text password as the first argument, and then the hashed encrypted password as the second one. So
Okay.
we can use that down here within our is user. We can just like define a new variable called is valid or something like that.
Is valid.
Yeah, and we'd want to do that within that if statement. So if we have a user, now we check to see if that user's password is valid. So you can call bcrypt.compareSync.
What was the syntax? Comparison.
And yeah, if you mouse over this compare sync function, you should get a tooltip that basically gives you a rundown of how like what it expects in this function. So the first argument is a string, and the second argument is the hash. So in our case, the string would just be credentials.pass, and then the second argument would be the hash, which is going to be I guess user.password. So the user variable that we have set represents like the row that we're getting from the database, and in the database, that's in the password column in the database. That's where we're storing this like hashed password. Oh, cool, ArcTimer. I'm gonna just pop this this open here. Take a look. Ooh, I like it, man. And I see you're using Butter CMS. That's interesting. I've never heard of Butter CMS before. I guess it's another headless CMS provider. Really nice. And I see you have an Echo Fox redesign. I like that. I remember seeing that a little while ago. And you got a custom scroll bar. Tight, man.
That looks nice.
Yeah. Pretty slick. I like these, like the technologies and tools with their corresponding icons. All right, and using Next to build it, and where's it? And it's hosted on now.sh. Got it. Nice job, man. This is really nice. I'm curious about why, or if you plan to host it at your .dev domain too. Oh, I guess this is maybe your old portfolio. Cool. Anyway, got it. Cool. Good stuff, man. Looks really nice. Yeah, man. I think we're all feeling the need for a barber these days. I just got my my hair chopped off by my girlfriend. She did a pretty good job, I think.
Looks great.
Thanks.
We'll be working in Toronto in no time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I told her. She's gonna get recruited, man. She keeps this up. And Kalahar, is this application going to be hosted on my friend's barbershop local network? No, the plan is to host this on the internet, so all the barbers can log into it from their phones. Like I don't need to worry about setting up like hosting locally or like running a server from the database, or not from the database, from their like local shop. So yeah, just gonna be hosted on the internet, which is why we need to have this all this like login and authentication logic built in. Cool. You said the articles go into detail about how you did things. Are you telling me that you have articles on the in your website about how you built it? Because if so, I really like that idea. Oh, like these articles about how you built the different projects. That's a really good idea, actually. Kind of like shows the thought process and all that. Good shit, man. All right, back to the auth handler. So now we have this is valid. It's going to be a Boolean. If it's true, then we can go ahead and send a successful login response. And so yeah, you can create another if statement there. And the thing that we're going to actually send back to the client for like valid auth requests is something called a JSON web token. So we're going to get into that in just a second, but I'm going to install in the API directory the JSON web token npm package. Ooh, that does sound cool, Orktamer. You get to like chat with the barber, and you can leave a tip and pay in advance. That's pretty sweet. I dig it.
Setup.
Pardon me?
So that is a sweet little setup.
Yeah, I think our goal here is to make like a really kind of like simplified, low tech, or as low tech as possible system. Yeah. All right. So yeah, in here we can basically say if is valid, then now we can send a response back to the client, and that response you can do that by saying res.send. By default, this will send some response with a 200 status code indicating that the response was fulfilled successfully, or the request was fulfilled successfully. And the thing that we're going to want to send back is going to be like I said, a JSON web token. So first thing we can do is require that JSON web token package. So you can just say const jwt equals require, and the package is JSON web token, all one word. Okay, and now if we check out those docs, JSON web token, let's see, what do we want? We want this jwt.sign function. So we can sign a new token given a payload, which is just an object with different properties on it, and then a private key. And that's the important part, is that the API is aware of what this like secret key is that we use to sign our tokens with, but that value is not known to the outside world. So nobody on the outside can like forge a token that we would create on our API. Therefore, like making that token kind of like a secure receipt, I guess, indicating that you went through the auth route and you got a token. Otherwise, you'd have no way of getting your hands on a valid signed JSON web token. So what we can do first actually is in the .env file in the API, you can pop that file open. Can you see that file?
No, I can't actually.
Oh shoot! I guess that you can't see hidden files. All right. Well, I'm gonna open that up and just add a new environment variable called jwt secret. And so again, I want to define this variable within my .env file so that it's not like lingering around in the code. Like this jwt secret doesn't get committed to GitHub.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go to like generate token secret on Google, and there's this site called randomkeygen.com that I like to go to get all my randomized keys like this. So this is just like a string that's impossible for a person to guess. All right, now we have that JWT secret stored in our environment variable. And let me see. Now we can use that jwt.sign method to create a token using it. So, yeah, what you can do is, I'm actually also going to add a column in our barbers table called name, just so that we can give, like, people can have like a username, and then they can have kind of like a nice name.
Makes sense.
All right. So yeah, so within our is valid block, you can create a new variable called token. And this is going to be equal to jwt.sign. And again, if you mouse over sign, you'll see that the first argument is a payload, which can either be a string or an object. Yeah, and in our case, we'd want this to be, I guess we could go either way, really, like a string with the barber's name, or an object with a property with the barber's name. This is a way that we can like render the logged in person in the UI. Essentially, like the UI will the person will fill out the login form. If they're successful, they'll get back a token containing their name, and then we can take that name out of the token and display it in the UI somewhere.
Okay.
And then the idea is, like, just to complete the whole thought. The excuse me. The idea is that then when somebody, like when a barber says serve or remove or like takes some kind of action, they're gonna send along that token with the action that they took, and then on the server we can verify that this token is valid, so we can continue to perform this action. So it's like this JSON web token is kind of like a key that the authenticated user gets to keep around and use in all future requests to tell the API that they have authenticated, this token is valid, and like you can perform the necessary actions. Really locks down our API in that way. So yeah, why don't we do for now, let's just do like an object, I guess, with a name property. And that's just equal to user.name. We will display their nice name in the UI. And then the second argument after that object is the token secret, which in our case is an environment variable. So you can write process.env. And you want to do that just like outside of the curly braces. And the environment variable name is jwt_secret. And it'll be in all caps.
Yes.
Oh no. Autocomplete. And just an underscore instead of the dot there. Beauty. And then, so yeah, then this will create our JSON web token. Once we have it, we can then pass that as the argument to res.send. Beautiful. Cool. So if you hit save there, we should get that all nice and auto-formatted. Cool. So the logic here should make sense. Like first we find a user. If the user exists, then we check to see if their password matches. If their password matches, then we create a token and we send that token back. And then basically in all other cases, we want to respond. Oops, we want to respond with an error. So instead of this res.send credentials at the bottom, what you can do instead is say like res.send status and pass in or the name of the method is send status like camel case, and this is just a way of like sending like an HTTP status. Like in our case, the status code we want to send is 401, which means that 401 is the status code for an unauthorized request. So you can pass the number 401 there. That's it.
Test it.
Let's test it. Okay, so what we should get when we hit submit now is this like 401 unauthorized in our console, unless we pass the username salty and the password. How's that work on your end?
Yep.
Really? Nice. Okay.
Good. Got a long ass token.
Yeah, that's perfect. Now is JWT sign? Okay, cool. I'm seeing that it seems to think that we're there's like an unhandled promise rejection or something. I don't think that that's the case. Oh, I see. So what's happening is if you can see in our terminal number 2, like the API terminal, we're getting an error because this res.send status is actually getting fired every request. And if it fires on a successful request, nothing happens, but it throws an error because it's like, well, you already sent a request, so like I can't change anything about that request, or I can't. You already sent a response, so I can't do anything about that response. So what we'll have to do in here after res.send is just return to basically say like stop doing anything after we return a successful response from here.
Just within this block.
Exactly, yeah. So we can just call return there, or we could say, oh my goodness, or we could say like return res.send. Either one works. Whatever. Yeah. What do you think? Like, do you like this look or like return res.send?
I don't really have a preference.
Okay, let's keep it like this.
I think that actually this one is more explicit to me. It's like do this and then return.
Okay, great. Okay, now we have our token coming back. That's pretty good. Like if you wanna wrap up here, we can do that, or the last little thing that we could do is like persist that token in local storage so that like we like actually show or don't show the app when somebody's logged in. Or do you want to save that for next time?
We can do that. We can do that.
Okay. Okie dokie. So right.
If you want to drive to.
Let's do it. Okay, so we're getting the response back from the API, and now we just need to save that token somewhere. So what I can do is say like local storage set item, and we'll give the key that we want to set this item in local storage as Sorrento token. This can just be any string. This is just a convention I like to use, like app name, and then colon whatever your like local storage key is. We could also just call this token, and that would work just as well. But this is just an organizational thing that I like to do. So I'm going to change this text variable to token and save it like so. Okay, now let's see. We can check to see that this is indeed being saved. If we open up our developer tools, look in local storage, and I can add a filter here for Sorrento. Currently we have no items in local storage, but if I hit submit with the correct credentials, we get this Sorrento token added to us here. So with that, now I can actually in the where are we here? In our index.js, where we're saying is logged in equals false. Well, now we can say is logged in is equal to local storage dot get item with our token key Sorrento token. So now let's see when the app refreshes. Now we have our logged in state, and if I delete the key and refresh the page, we have our logged out state. Now if I try logging in here, salty and password, the token gets stored in local storage, but the app doesn't re-render automatically because React isn't paying attention to changes in a local storage item. Once it calls this local storage.getItem once, it doesn't know that this item has been updated in local storage when we do update it. So to get around that, what we can do is, we could have like set up some local React state, and then when we set the local storage item, we also set the React state. But luckily, this React use package that we were dealing with before actually has a use local storage hook that basically does that for us. It stores things in local storage, and it triggers a re-render when those things change. So we can get that by calling or by importing from React use /lib/use local storage. And this hook works. Well, let's see how it works. React use. Ooh, yeah, Orktamer. This is the real fun stuff. React hooks. So
I'm in the same boat, so we're learning together.
Hell yeah. There's no boat I'd rather be in than the React hooks boat. All right. So this is basically how the hook works. It gives you the value from local storage. It gives you a set value function, and it gives you a remove function to then remove that value. For example, like when we want to log out. And then you just pass the key that you want to affect from all these hook functions as the first argument, and you can pass an initial value as the second argument. But for our purposes, if there's no value set, then that's fine. We don't need to have an initial value. So I'm going to use the hook like so. We'll say token, set token, and remove token. Our three values will be use local storage with the Sorrento token key. And then we can just rearrange this. So if we have a token, render the app, and I'm going to pass into the app the remove token function as a prop. And then in the login form, I'm going to pass it the set token function as a prop. Okay, then when we move back to our login form, I'm going to define a prop type first. So we'll say login form at the bottom dot prop types equals set token is going to be the prop type func for function, and it's going to be required. We're expecting it to always exist. And I'm getting yelled at because prop types isn't defined. So we can go up here and import prop types from prop-types. Okay, now we can use this set token function in place of, where are we doing this? In place of local storage.set item. Now we can just say props.set token with our token that we got back from our API request. And I have to define props as the argument to login form. Okay, so now this should do the trick for setting the token. Now I'm just going to set up like a quick little log out button. So why don't we do, we can just, I'm just going to make this quick and dirty for now. What I'll do is define, I'll make this component return a div where if state, we return app inner, otherwise we return this loading. And then in all cases, we're going to return this button where the on-click is remove token, or rather props remove token, because that's what we just passed in from that index component. It's just going to say log out. Okay, and again, no props were defined on this app component yet, so we're going to have to deal with that. So at the top of this file, we can say import prop types from prop types and define that down here. App.prop types equals remove an object with a remove token property, which is a function, and it is required. Interesting. Something is not right here. Oh, I've already imported prop types. That's why it's complaining. Got it. Okay, now with those two pieces in play, let's try this again. Okay, so we're logged out. Sorrento token is undefined. Interesting. Okay. Salty password, and there we go. When we successfully complete an auth request, the token gets set. I'm getting a oh, interesting. The prop remove token is marked as required in the app, but it's undefined. I wonder why. Well, let's see. So now when I click log out, nothing happens. I see. I wonder why that is. Did I interpret this wrong? I'm going to console log remove token here. So it is undefined. That is curious. I wonder if they just like documented this incorrectly or something. Let's take. I'm just gonna take a quick look at the source. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we might be able to get to the bottom of this. Remove. Yeah, I mean they do. It does appear like they're returning a remove function, but we don't get that. All right, well, whatever. Actually, hold up. Let's just look at this for a quick second here. Yeah, that's super weird that it's that it's behaving like this. Maybe. Okay, here's a potential issue. Maybe they didn't make a new release with this change. Let's just see. 225 releases. So they just released and they just cut a new release 2 days ago. So I'm thinking that maybe if we update, yeah, I'm gonna update the dependency on React use, and then hopefully that will give us the function that we need. So change to the client directory. We'll say npm install React use at latest. So that'll just make sure we get the latest published version. And then we should be done here with our login, logout stuff.
I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into this React use repo.
Dude, it's a lifesaver for sure. There's so many of these like really nice utility hooks. That it's just like quality of life improvements. A lot of this stuff you could make it happen, just by like a combination of regular React hooks, but yeah, like we experienced using the use interval hook. A lot of these things are just so it's like convenience hooks, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, just going into the source for that one React use function was like I don't know, 100 lines of code.
Yeah, exactly. And they're pretty good quality. It's a pretty good quality library. I tend to use it in most of the new projects that I work on. All right, so now it appears like we have a remove token function. This is what happens when I console log that function. So let's try this. Now when I hit logout, we get back to the login form, and if I say salty password, we get logged in, and that's the flow.
Beautiful.
So dope, man. It's really slick. Salty password. Beautiful. So yeah, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up today. Next stream, what we're going to be doing is associating customers with barbers, and then just starting working on implementing the design, and then that's pretty much it for this project, huh?
Yeah, as long as we don't run into any more
Oh, we will.
problems
Oh, we will.
along the way. But I think that definitely, like, I would say at this point we've extended the MVP a few times, but that would definitely solidify
Yeah,
all of the ideas we had.
I agree.
And then we can see what Salty has to say about it.
Exactly. What has he got for us next time? What could he
Yeah.
possibly say? No, I think we're looking pretty good at this point. Do you want to make the last get commit and then we'll sign off. And
And
Orc Tamer says that he's been using Passport to just let people log in with Twitter or Discord. I do like that idea as well. I've got a few apps where I've foregone the whole like username password thing in favor of like a login with Google or something like that. But yeah, for something like this, it's like so there's no open sign up. Like not anybody can log in. We have to specifically like gate the app to a specified list of barbers. So we'll be creating their accounts and getting them all set up. There's not going to be a sign up form. And yeah, man, I agree. Best feeling when you finish a day with no errors. That's the dream. Dope. We're good. All right, now we have our login form working. We've got a JSON web token that we can use in future requests to indicate like who is taking these actions. And yeah, I think we'll be able to hit the ground running next time, which is tomorrow, right?
tomorrow, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific.
You got it.
Hell yeah!
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, it was a very productive session.
Yeah, it's not bad. We again like covered a pretty significant amount of ground. So let's see what did we do? We added this like timer to everybody that's in the wait list that just like keeps going on its own forever. We implemented the text remove to remove yourself from the list functionality, and we set up user login. That's like three um, pretty major bits of functionality.
And we got some headway done on the styling for the login
Yep,
page, the dashboard.
that's true. Yeah. This is already like a third of the way there.
Slap a logo on there and
Yep,
a little bit of
you
styling.
got it.
Bob's your uncle.
Bob is my uncle. Well, all right, man. I think that's it for us. It's, hope you have a good rest of your night. Chat. Take care. Don't forget to drink some water.
Drink lots of water.
Use Socket.io next to let the barbers chat with each other. Yeah, maybe it might be necessary if we start to have like the barbers cutting from within like plexiglass cubes, for maximum safety. They'll have to like text chat. A little out of scope for this one though. Okay. I'm just gonna do a quick check to see if any of the homies are streaming, and we'll raid them. But otherwise, I'm gonna raid. I'm gonna raid my friend Gabby. She's working on. Well, she's playing a game called Graveyard Keeper. But yeah, we're gonna give her a little raid here, and that'll be it for us. Let me just do this raid. Gabby Diggs. And yeah, everybody have a great rest of your night. Enjoy Gabby's stream. Ken, thanks so much, man, and we'll catch you tomorrow. Peace out, guys. Awesome.